All right, so today's episode is absolutely wild. I have a good friend of mine, Dr. Michael McCormick, joining us, who's the former chief of surgery at the Helen Keller Hospital in Alabama. But more importantly, he is a doctor working in the field of addiction recovery. He has a wild story. We're going to get into all of that, and then we're going to nerd out a little bit on the medications that we're using to treat opioid use disorder. You're going to want to tune in. It's a good one. All right. Welcome to the Zach Clark Show. Today, our guest. It's our first guest ever, and you only get one first guest, so don't fuck it up. All right, Mike?
No problem. It's a lot of pressure, but that's all right.
I'm thrilled that you're here. Dr. Michael McCormick is the chief medical officer at Release Recovery. So we know each other well because we work together on a daily basis. But today, the goal is to dig into a little bit of your story, dig into a little bit of your career and how you got to where you are.
Sure.
And I'm going to let you do a lot of the talking. The goal of this podcast and this conversation is to help one person.
That's right.
You know, and you know that just like I do.
Agreed. Yeah, I think that's a great goal to have.
So I want to work a little backwards here. This story that I know about you is wild. So we're going to fast forward to the end. You're in recovery, right?
Sure.
And so any one of us who's in recovery has a story. And we share our stories openly in hopes of helping the next person. So fast forward, you're in Alabama.
Yep.
You're a general surgeon at a hospital.
Yep.
And your addiction is running wild, and you're writing scripts to your wife to feed your I need the story. I need it.
Yeah. No, that's it. So the addiction, the disease, it had progressed to that point, right? And I would go through periods. You know, I'm a true alcoholic at heart. I mean, that's the main thing. But through the years, the opiates came into play, especially towards the end, because I felt like people wouldn't know. You wouldn't smell like booze or whatnot. And it turns out, my wife always knew just by looking at my eyes. But I had to get the opiates somehow. And so I wasn't in the biggest town, which is, interesting. So what I mean by that is it wasn't like I go buy stuff on the street. And, I had the ability to write prescriptions for opiates because I'm a doc. And, I wasn't in my right mind. And really at that time, the thought I had, Zach, was like I was writing Lorcet, which is hydrocodone, Lortab's Vicodin, Brett Favre's thing, for pretty much everybody because I'm a general surgeon. So I'm taking your gallbladder out and I'm causing pain. So I'm giving you a script and a couple more scripts, or whatever it may be. And so in my mind, I thought, oh, this is okay. I can just start. And so I couldn't write for myself. So I would write for my wife. She didn't know. I mean, she figured it out as we went along. And then I would take it to, one of these local pharmacies, usually a mom and pop. And
did they know you? I mean, like you're going to...
Yeah, I mean, now looking back, how could they not have? There's 6 or 7 general surgeons in this whole 50,000 person town. Like, how did they not? I wasn't in my right mind. But I guess, people kind of, not blaming them, but they kind of looked the other way and they'd fill the scripts and I'd get them filled. I did some you see, you bring it out of me. I start thinking about things. I would do other things too. Like I'd write like antibiotics or something else. Like she had like an infection or something.
To
and
cover
like
it up.
Yeah, to cover it up. Yeah. But
to act like.
Right. It was normal. Yeah. But it wasn't.
I always laugh because alcoholics, right? Like when I know when I was drinking, I would change liquor stores. Because God forbid the person behind the counter knew that I was an alcoholic. When
No
they're
way.
They're doling out booze all day, every day.
That's it.
That's hilarious, man. So
That's it.
So you're at this point in your life. You're doing. I mean, is it safe to say like you were under the influence doing some of these surgeries, or?
Yeah. So great question, and here's what it is. And as you know, what I did before I joined you, and joined Release was I took care of healthcare professionals for 9-10 years, whatever it was, and so we're high achievers. So we draw a line in the sand. Like I'm not going to use, I'm not going to drink, I'm not going to be under the influence at work. And when it goes over that line, that's when the disease has really progressed. So I remember sitting in treatment early on and being like, hey, at least I didn't get, effed up at work or when I was operating on people. But then the reality set in that if I'm drinking or using until 12:30, 1 o'clock at night and going to the OR at 7 a.m., it is influencing me.
Yeah, it's funny. I
So-
think for high achievers, we get to a point where, like, as long as we do what we're supposed to do, at the end of the day,
Yeah.
we deserve that reward. And even
That's
as
it.
I've gotten into recovery, like, I've had that relationship with nicotine at times, like, where I'm like running a bunch or whatever it is, and I get to the end of the day and I earn that Zin, or I earn that little spike of dopamine because like I did what I was supposed to do.
I think it's normal, like to say, like, it's not the work hard, play hard. It's more of the I deserve it. You hit it right on the head, and that was my thought process. Hey, look, I got a bunch of kids doing well. I got a good wife. We got houses. I'm doing great. I'm chief of surgery. Like, I deserve this. That's exactly what I thought.
How long are you sober now?
Since 2010, so we're coming up on 15. Yeah,
15.
June 6th. Yeah.
Don't let me catch you, bro.
June 6th.
I'm right behind you.
You're not catching me.
I
No
better
way,
not. I
man.
better not.
I feel like I'm walking right alongside you, so no, we're good.
All right,
almighty,
so
that's a long
let's
time.
just get back to this. So and
Yeah.
at this time when you're writing these, how many kids? You have 5 kids.
We had all of them, yeah. All my kids. When I got sober, we had all 5 kids.
Okay, so how does it come crashing down? You're writing these scripts
Yeah.
for your wife. She has no idea. You're having a surprise party for one, and where do we?
So we're it just it was definitely a process, or there was a progression to it. So the drinking was an issue, and that's my behaviors when I would drink were just not every time like we do, but it would just be a big problem. And so for many years there was lots of my family and my wife wanted me just to be sober, but I wasn't ready. And so towards the end, about a year before I got sober, year and a half, I went to a guy at my hospital, another doc who was sober, and said, look, I'm having trouble, and I just talked about the alcohol, and he got me plugged into an AA meeting locally, and I started going to that, and I was sober for a period of time, but I just was dry, I was just abstinent. I didn't dive into the program, and so that was probably that was Halloween of 2009 through the spring, April, this time of the year of 2010. And that story is when I drove home. I think I've told you, before, I came home on Halloween and I had a wine cellar, wine closet, whatever you call it, and my wife had broken all the bottles. In our backyard, we had this brick square thing where there was this huge tree, and my wife is a very nonviolent person, totally normal. And I was like, oh man, I'm in trouble. And that was Halloween of 9, and it was because she had found a ton of those prescription pill bottles with her name on it. And she was like, I'm not going to jail for this. I'm calling the state on you. And like we do, we're good. We talk our way out of it, and I did. And at that time, that's when I went to this guy in my hospital, started going to AA, but it really wasn't diving in. And was sober for a period of time, and kind of got her back in my good graces. And then in the spring, we were down at the beach, down in 30A in Sandestin, Florida, in that area. And I just played golf, and something snapped one morning. I couldn't get out of bed. And one of my kids, my Johnny, my middle guy, he was like, we got to go to the beach. And I said to my wife, I think I pulled something in my ribs, blah, blah, blah. And she said, we'll just go get the coffees. Come back, take some ibuprofen, and then we'll get the day going. And as I drove to get the coffees, it was a drive I made for the previous 8 years, and I'd get scripts at this little pharmacy there. And something just went off on me. I called the pharmacy, called in a script for my wife, and picked up the coffees, and I was back running again. So that was April through June, and it was bad. Like we talk about all the time, it goes right back to where it was, and it did. Right back to it. And the opiates were the main thing. The alcohol came in a little bit, but it was hard because everybody was watching me.
Right.
I was supposed to be sober.
Yeah, once the cat's out of the bag, it's hard to hide that shit.
Yeah. And then it was just kind of a culmination of things in my hospital. The guy I'd gone to, the CEO, my wife, it was just kind of like everything crashed in at once. And they were like, listen, kind of, you're right. The cat was out of the bag, and it was like, look, he needs help. And so they said, you got to go get an evaluation. This 5-day evaluation at a place. And they gave me a couple places to go, and I chose a place in Warrior, Alabama, which was Bradford. saved my life, just like a little bit outside of Birmingham. And so I went there, though, thinking, this is how insane I was. Got dropped off on a Sunday, thought I'd be out on Thursday. That's when the evaluation ended. And so I didn't cancel any of my OR cases for Friday. I had like 10 cases. And, I just lied the first 72 hours there, 96 hours, whatever. And then,
what's the emotion right now? Is it gratitude?
Yeah, I think it is.
Is it shame?
Yeah. No. Definitely not shame. Yeah, definitely not. I think definitely gratitude.
You're proud of this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, this is a big deal. You know that. I mean, it's pretty huge.
No, it's the best. I mean, like that's the confusing part of, I think, this work that we do together and just trying to help the next person get sober is that we can shout it from the rooftops how grateful we are for our recoveries, but to actually have someone sit across from us and believe that is a whole nother story. The fact that we're even just here having this conversation is a miracle.
I know. It is. You're 100% right. It's definitely gratitude. And also it's, you don't, I mean, look where I'm a little, ways out from this now, like you. But, when you go back and you think about it and stuff starts popping in your head, you're like, oh my God, that's right. This and then that. And then,
and
like,
is there a story where they dump out, someone has all the scripts or they dump them out on the table or what happened?
Crazy. So I'm downstairs in this treatment facility, which, I ended up, as crazy as the world is, doing this with other doctors, dentists, nurses for 9 years when we have an out brief, it's called. So you go in and you sit at this long table and everyone that's on the team that's just evaluated you for the previous 4 or 5 days tells you what they think and what you need. So I'm like so nervous. So it's Thursday morning and I'm sitting there and my counselor came down, Maggie, love her, and she said, look, we couldn't talk to your wife. And, she's the last piece of this. And because I'd given them our house number, not our cell phone number, and I knew she'd be out with the kids, and we didn't have a machine. So she said, we're just going to have to call the state because there's just too much stuff going on here. And I said, all right, here's her number. And I gave her cell phone number. So then I'm sitting there, and then I'm like, oh, my God, they talked to her. She's going to tell them everything, which is good, which is what I wanted her to, but I didn't, but I did. So when I go upstairs to sit at this long table, the one psychiatrist, Dr. Cornelius, I start just telling him everything. And he had this old computer paper, like this printout, and he like flips it like a double take, and I could see it right now in my eyes. And it's like all these scripts that I'd written. I was like, holy shit, this is crazy. And he's like, yeah, we knew either it was you or your wife certainly needed to be sitting here. And I was like, no, it's not my wife. It's me. And so crazy. And I think
all those drugs. I mean, that's the story right there.
That's
I mean,
it, right?
There's like one is too many, 1,000 is never enough, right? I mean, like it's true.
That's it. Tolerance, that. Moving
all
on.
Opiates, or you were
primarily opiates. Some of the amphetamines, the Ritalins or Adderalls, because you got to balance yourself out.
Of course.
Come on now,
Yeah. So is that the moment of clarity? Like when those scripts hit the table, because I saw the emotion come out of you. Like, is that the moment of clarity for you, where you're like, if I don't do something now, like I'm going to take my whole family down?
Yeah, we talk about, that when we talk about the spiritual experience and the, spiritual awakening, the burning bush, 2 moments for me. It wasn't necessarily a great question. It wasn't necessarily the scripts, but it was that sitting downstairs, waiting to go upstairs to that room, and then that would happen in the room. So 100%.
Yeah.
That was it. Yeah.
So grateful you're alive, man.
I know, it's crazy. But you're right though. That was it. That was it. And I looked in treatment all the time, probably like you, for that burning bush. Meanwhile, it just happened.
Right.
Like I made the change internally, that from our head to our heart, and it was it. So.
Well, and that's, I think, because I want to get into the work that we do a little bit and the work that you do specifically, because I think you're one of the best doctors I've ever met, and I say this because I respect you and you respect me. Like I wouldn't say you're the smartest doctor,
right.
Like I wouldn't put you like Harvard, but like
correct.
Your bedside manner and the way that you connect with patients and the way that you're authentic and share with folks does more good than any Harvard degree could ever do.
Yeah, thanks.
And so, when is that pivot from, okay, you're a general, so you get sober, things start to go okay, you're living down in Alabama, and when do you decide, like, I might actually want to be a doc. Like I might actually want to help some people.
Yeah. No, it was during, while I was in treatment, right? So I had to go to treatment for 90 days. So, what happened that day was I basically admitted to everything, and they said, no, we figured all that. And so they said the recommendation, like for most docs at that time, was 90 days in treatment. So I was there for 90 days. So during that time, as I started moving through this, I got working with a great sponsor. And Mike's been a godsend to me. I still talked to him 2 weeks ago. But as I started to get into recovery, I realized, probably I got there June 6th. This was probably mid-July. I was like, I want to do this work. And, I don't know what it was. It hit me. And I told Mike Wilkerson, Dr. Wilkerson, who's a mentor, who was my doc there, I said, hey, I want to do this work. And he was like, whoa. He's like, slow down. He's like, just go back up to the Shoals where I lived, Muscle Shoals, Florence, that area. And he said, keep operating, keep working on your recovery, and then figure it out. And that's what I did. So I went back and I rebuilt everything up, operated for another 2 years. We did everything we wanted to do. And we actually was busier because, I was better with my time and,
No, I remember when I first moved to New York, I was probably 4 or 5 months sober, and I was talking to some folks, and I was like, I think I found my purpose. I think I want to help people, whatever that means. I want to jump into this, and I had a lot of people telling me not to, and thank God I bet on myself. And that's one of the biggest gifts I think we get back in recovery is this ability to really like believe in ourselves and understand that we actually have talent and ability and greatness.
Yeah. No, I think you're exactly right. I had people that said that to me. They're like, wait, you trained for 6 years to be a surgeon? You're finally out, you're doing great. Like, what do you do? What? Like, I had a lot of people think that. It is what it is, though. I wasn't, when we, but if we get places like you had success before you got sober and in business and before you did, this great thing, and I did as well. I mean, it's like if we didn't, I got to the top of the mountain, I felt, and it wasn't good, though. I knew I needed something different. So
yeah. So let's fast forward to working in the field.
Yep.
As a doc, you have a responsibility, a big responsibility, right? To really hear your patients, understand what they're going through, and then proceed accordingly. And one of the things that I've seen throughout my 12 years is the evolution of medicine, right? And the role that medicine or medication plays in the recovery process. There's a school of thought that believes that, the abstinence-based, don't take meds, don't do nothing. If you do, you're not sober. There's,
right.
Kind of like a middle ground that says, okay, if your diagnosis is such, you're allowed to, which I never understood what allowed to means. And then there's the whole kind of like harm reduction crew. And my goal or my dream would be for everyone to get along, right? Because there's enough people to help. But the thing that breaks my heart is that I see men, women, husband, wives, brothers, sisters, daughters, whoever it is, come in to our program or just into quote unquote recovery, and they start taking medication. And I'm not a doctor, you are. I don't have an opinion on the medications that people take, but when I hear MAT, and for those of you guys that don't know that who are listening, it's medication assisted treatment.
Yep.
So it's basically utilizing some form of medication to assist your treatment. And for me, a lot of times that A gets confused with medication as treatment. So I'm going to go on an opiate blocker, and that's all I'm going to do. And I'm going to keep living this exact same way that I was living, and I'm going to expect change. Or I'm going to expect the people in my life to, like, give me a pat on the back and say, congratulations, because you're not doing drugs anymore, yet the behavior is still there. So I'm just curious in terms of what you're seeing, the intersection of kind of like medication and behavior and therapy and how these things all work together. Like, I know for me, I had to start running, I had to start eating clean, I had to start meditating, I had to start, doing all these other things in addition to some of the other clinical and medical protocols.
Yeah, I think that's really it. And you and I come from, abstinent 12-step based guys who have had a lot of success, I think, in our recoveries. But we're what worked for you and I maybe doesn't work for everyone. So, I had the ability when
I believe that, by the way. Like, I actually believe, because I've seen other people get it in other ways.
I've seen that with you. I've seen a change in you from when I was at Karen. Yeah, 100%, which I love. So when I did my fellowship at Karen, I Joe Garbely, who we both know.
Karen is not a girl. It's a treatment center out in Pennsylvania. It happens to be where I went to rehab, and I'm now on the board. And you spent 8 years there until I swept in and stole you.
You did, thankfully. And I love Karen, dear to my heart. And Zach's right. When you do the teletext, it comes out as Karen. It has not got me in trouble with my wife, but it's been close before. That I'm just getting done at Karen. Like, that doesn't go over real well. So it's Caron. But Joe Garbely gave me the ability to say, like, hey, opened up my mind, right? We love open-mindedness, right? We love the honesty, open-mindedness, willingness to say, like, hey, MAT actually can work, and there's a subset of patients that need it. But you're 100% right. It's medication-assisted treatment. So it is. It's 12-step, or whatever you choose for your recovery, Dharma, Celebrate, Smart, whatever that is. It's therapy, individual. It's group. It's support. It's, eating right. You're 100% right. Meditation, prayer. It's all of that. So if people are able to do all of that and be on the medications and are doing well, then I think it's great for them, because with time, they maybe will come off the medicines, I just had a patient on Monday, and you forget, you do the same thing. I think you do, like, you'll say something to someone and they'll come back a year, 2 weeks, 6 years later and say, hey, I remember when you said X or Y. And he said to me, I remember what you said to me. As long as I'm not snorting my Suboxone tablets, I'm okay. And it's like it's the truth, though. Like, if you're taking the medication as prescribed, we're okay. And don't worry about what anyone says in the rooms. And I love the rooms more than anyone, but, like, you just got to worry about yourself.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, the medication thing, it actually blows my mind. I mean, when I was at the end of my run, I was doing the take Suboxone one day because I didn't have enough money for the heroin. Like, right. I was doing the every other day thing, and it was crazy. But I think about, like, the 55-year-old guy who's been doing heroin for 30 years, like 30 years of getting high, and he needs something to help him stop. And the fact that we have medications that can do that. And it's a long game. I mean, it can be a long game. It could take 2, 3, 4 years for that guy to really come back. But that's right. Thank God. Hopefully he's got another good 15, 20, 25 in him, if he's really able to get well and to get healthy, because the damage we do to our bodies in the middle of our addictions or our substance use disorders is crazy. Can we nerd out for a second? Just because I think it's part of what, we're trying to do here is provide a little bit of education. So when you think about opiates, right? The opiate or the opioid is what gets us high, right? So
correct.
So can you just give the 101 on that? What an opiate?
Yeah, so the opiate's going to attach to that receptor in the brain, and it's going to fill that receptor's like a cup. And when the opiate comes in and attaches to that cup, it's going to give, the main reason it's there is for pain relief, but it also has the euphoria, which is the high. Yeah, and that's it. So that attaches to that receptor. And it causes that feeling. Now, the problem is that the body's so smart, the way we're made, that as that goes on, you develop tolerance. So you need more of it. So more of these little receptors are set up. So you need higher and higher doses of opiates just to get back to that euphoria or that wow feeling that you're always chasing.
Yeah, it's just like you're drinking beers. Right. You go from a 6-pack to a 12-pack to a case of natural light to the head. It's like
exactly, and that's why the amount of opiate use goes up and up and up and up.
All right, so I'm a patient. I walk into your office and I have an opiate addiction. I'm addicted to opiates, and again, like, what I want to stress is that the type of opiate isn't important, right? Like we get so hung up on a word like heroin, but Oxycontin, Roxicet, Percocet, whatever you're taking, you can throw it all in the middle of the table, and it's all the same shit at the end of the day, right?
Correct.
Like, I mean,
100%.
of course, there's different, and we haven't even gotten into the fentanyl thing, but that's some scary shit. But so I walk into your office. What are my options? Like, can you take me through like the Vivitrol, the Suboxone, and the what am I forgetting here?
Yeah, methadone. Yeah. It's
Can you
3 buckets. Yeah.
Can you take me through the 3 buckets, like in like a layman's way, just for the listener to kind of hear the options and kind of what each does?
Yeah. I think that's wow. Glad you're asking that. So there's really 3 options or 3 buckets. There's the 4th one, which we really never recommend, which is just pure abstinence and nothing. And then the 2 extremes. So methadone's on one extreme, which there's a subset of patients, and I know that now, that needs methadone. The problem with methadone is that it's a full agonist, which means it acts just like oxycodone, Roxicet, heroin, whatever, meaning that it attaches to those receptors, and so you're going to get that same euphoria. That's the problem with methadone, but there's a group of patients that need it.
Right.
And then on the other extreme is the naltrexone products, which is Vivitrol, which is the injectable. Naltrexone is the oral formulation of that. And so what that does is those little cups or those little receptors, the naltrexone will go in there and block it. So the naltrexone will attach to it. So if you take an opiate, you won't get the euphoria or the high. Like, it'll come in there, but it'll just keep moving because those little receptors are all filled. So naltrexone, Vivitrol, which we love the injectable because of the compliance issue. So if you come to my office and I give you a shot every 28 days, I know you have it. Whereas if you're taking the naltrexone at night, you may forget on a Wednesday night or a Thursday, and you may be doing well in your recovery.
Or I mean, for myself, I'm not forgetting. I'm purposely not taking it, and then that's when a lot of overdoses happen, right? Because
your tolerance is down, and you're right. And you and I, the overdose can happen, and then that's when the death happens, and that's scary.
Well, a lot of times we get the phone calls and his family's screaming and crying, and he was sober for 6 months. He was clean for 9 months. He was doing so well. And it's that return to use that oftentimes causes the accidental overdose, right? And then Suboxone's in the middle.
Suboxone's in the middle, so it's a partial agonist. So what that means is it partially blocks and partially attaches to that receptor. So what does it do? You said in your own words, which was so good, it makes people feel there's maybe, like, if you haven't been on any opiate or any Suboxone and you take it, because the guys are pretty honest with me when I talk to them, you may get a little boost, like a little, but not much. People aren't getting high from Suboxone. That's what people need to know. All it does is it fills that receptor and it makes people feel normal. It helps with the mood and it just normalizes them. It really does. And I stand by that. I really don't think the guys, women, whoever's taking it are getting high from the Suboxone.
I mean, I have experience with all.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So look,
Suboxone for me, it was a necessary evil, especially I'm grateful for it because when I was really out there, like at the end of my run and I was ripping it running, that detox, like that abstinence, that like cold turkey detox is something that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy, right? Yep. So if I had a little bit of Suboxone to kind of get me through that, it probably saved me from doing some really scary shit. Behaviorally, like I don't know if I was going to rob someone or what I was going to do, but just that ability to kind of settle in. I'm getting a phone call here. Just that ability to settle in was really like life saving for me. And I know that I can just share my experience because that's something I'm comfortable doing. So I got into rehab and at Karen, and I was a pretty significant opiate addict, right?
Sure.
So they gave me that opioid use disorder.
Yep.
They gave me that diagnosis, and so they put me on Suboxone or Subutex for like a 10 to 14 day taper.
Yep.
And I was grateful for that because I didn't feel so sick. And then I stayed in treatment for 4 months, right? So I gave myself a nice runway. And then as my time in treatment started to wind down, I got the shot. I got the Vivitrol because I was going to enter into the real world. And I did the shot, the blocker, the 28, for, I would say, 6 months. And the crazy thing happened for me, which is I got sober.
Yeah.
Like I got into recovery. And I actually, dude, I forgot I was taking the Vivitrol. Yeah. I just didn't make my appointment, and I never looked back.
Yeah.
Like I just never, I never even thought about it again. And that was like, for me, it was the perfect way to do it, but that's just my experience because I'm sitting here 12 and a half years later.
Yeah.
So I just want to be clear about, like, there's a lot of bullshit out there around medication. Yep. It serves a purpose. I do worry about some of the blowhards in, you know, some of these rooms, right? The 12-step rooms or wherever you might find that, like, think they're doctors.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm so grateful to have you on today, because you actually are a doctor and you've seen it all, and you've seen people use these medications in a very effective way, myself included, and find themselves years later in recovery, which is all we ask for.
That's it. And you and I know also some people that are in early recovery on, you know, buprenorphine or Suboxone products that are like their recovery I'd put up against anyone's. Yeah. You and I know that. We know those people, and it's amazing. And so if it's going to help them keep them alive, keep them from using, keep them working through their recovery, that's fine. Look, if they're out there, you know, running and gunning and doing crazy stuff with it, then it's a different story. You and I know that. Same with like with SSRIs or SNRIs or antidepressants. I've heard that in the rooms before, and I'm like, come on, man.
Right.
How are we judging this poor guy that's on this? That's crazy.
And that's the thing I think we need to focus on, is like the compassion. I mean, we have a guy that works for us here, Greek, who won't mind me sharing this, but you treated him at Karen. Yeah. And now you're working with us. But he came to us to release for, you know, our living, our residential piece.
Sure.
And he was on Suboxone. And he was very clear with me. This is back in the day when I was still managing cases, and like we were working together, and he said, Zach, like I want to get off this, but I don't want to rush it. Like because I don't want to get sick. I don't want to make bad decisions.
Right.
And he did it, man. Like he took a year.
That's it.
And he just slowly tapered down. And he did it in such a beautiful way where, you know, I share that story because there's no one way to do this thing, right?
That's 100% right. And you know what we used to tell people is if we're going to send you on Suboxone or we're going to start you on it, you're going to be on it a minimum of a year, right? So that's what we think. Yeah. You know, a minimum of a year, and there's no papers to prove that, but we know the recovery's good then. And then it's going to be a minimum of 9 to 12 months to get off it. You're 100% right. Greek did it the right way.
Yeah.
And that has the most success. So I love that.
Yeah, and the other interesting thing that I think just comes up a lot is, especially in dealing with families, and we know how important the families are in this process, is, you know, just because they're on this medication to block a specific drug doesn't mean they can't go drink, doesn't mean they can't go do cocaine, doesn't mean they can't still go get high. And I know for me, there was a lot of time there where I wasn't doing opiates, but I was, you know, drinking around the clock. I was abusing my, you know, pharmaceuticals.
Sure.
And I wasn't sober, you know, and so that's what I think ends up being confusing to folks, because they'll be on one of these medications, but the behaviors won't change. And that's where, you know, when I talk about that, the assisted, my passion and my purpose, and you as well, is to get the men and women we work with involved in a lot of things, so they start to find a reason to want to build a life worth living.
Agreed. Totally agree. That's what it's all about. And that's the secret sauce of this whole thing.
Yeah.
But it works. It works for people.
Exercise, sleep.
Yeah, everything.
You know,
crazy, right?
The crazy,
you don't want to be hungry, right? Angry, lonely, tired, right? We're avoiding all those things.
Yeah. So we got a few minutes left. I just want to kind of go back to something here. And I just, like, I'm sitting here, like, I'm blown away by the power of your story.
Thanks.
Like, the amount, it chokes me up, because, like, the amount of people that you've sat with and shared that with is just so powerful. And I think we forget. Like, I think we forget how, because we're in this thing every day. Like, I think we forget how powerful our experience is.
Yeah.
You know? And I just want to go back to, because I felt it when we were talking about it, the emotion around, you have 5 kids.
Right.
You have a wife.
Right.
We haven't even gotten into our shared love for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Oh, go Birds.
Go Birds. Which is wild. So, like,
Yeah, yeah.
I sit
this
next
is
to your
oh my
family, like
gosh.
section 112, row 25. Like I'm like
Yeah.
before I knew you, I knew
Yeah.
half your
I know.
your hooligan crew that you were running around
Correct.
with. And then,
Love them all.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then one day someone's like, you know, Dr. Mike at Karen. I'm like, fucking Dr. Mike, like that's my guy. You know.
Yep.
And they don't have to understand us, which is so beautiful. But
I know.
when you wake up in the morning, and you think about your recovery, and then you think about your wife and kids, like how much of this is for them? Like what are the feelings around the fact that your wife, I mean, God bless her, stayed with you and hung in there? Because we don't talk about the family enough. Like you can never talk about them enough. But man, I hear your story. I hear a wife that stuck by you, and I hear 5 kids that still love you and for the most part know you as a sober man.
That's right. And that's it. So my oldest were my Soph was probably 10, I guess, 10, 11. My Michael was like 9, 10. And then the little guys, the last 3 were little, so they don't remember. You're right. They don't remember. And my older guys kind of get some of it. I was always there for everything, but I wasn't there, like, because if we're drinking and using drugs, we're not there. So I wasn't, the best dad. My wife, God bless her. I mean, it's like I was in treatment with 2 guys, good friends. One, his wife stuck by him. Another, wife was great. As soon as he got out, divorced him. So I'm very, very lucky to have that and grateful for that. But I'll tell you what the interesting thing is, like when I was away at daddy camp, which is what we called it, because my wife and I dropped my 2 oldest at camp and then dropped me at treatment the same day.
So you called rehab daddy camp.
Daddy camp.
Yeah, got it.
They'd come down in the black Suburban on Sundays on visiting day, and it was pure entertainment for everyone there. They'd pull it up, open up the hatchback, out would drop the 5 kids with cars, balls. It was a circus. But I loved it. That's my family, right? Yeah. So I was proud of it. But my wife said to people, because shared this with me, people would say stuff to her like, oh, aren't you going to divorce him? Aren't you going to get, She's like, no, I just want my husband back. Like this guy that now is a lunatic. Like this guy's crazy. Like this isn't what I married. This isn't, what I signed up for. Yeah. So I think that's a huge thing. The family, you're right. I mean, it's like, come on, it affects, our behavior, our recovery. We talk about it all the time. It affects the whole family. Oh, 100%. Like, because a lot of people don't make it. A lot of people don't figure this thing out. And it's like, well, we know families that tons of them. Of course. So for me, my extended family, look, I got it in my family all through it, right? I mean, I got a bunch of cousins that are figuring this thing out, and uncles, and it goes all up and down the tree. So it's like, I mean, it's not why I did it, to make my family proud, but it's, I think I'm a better dad, better husband, better brother, better son, better friend, better doc, definitely. Yeah. So
yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, and it's like to answer the question earlier about. When I would walk out, if I'd say I took your colon out or did something, I can remember a couple of my last cases that I did, and one was in particular was good. And like when I walk out and talk to the family, like that's pretty powerful. I'll be honest with you. Right. I'm an athlete like you. Like we're always looking for that boost. Like it's a pretty good feeling, but the feeling, and you get it, and those of us that work in this field get it, when you can figure this out and the light for someone, help them. And the light goes on for them, that's the feeling that's unbelievable. You can't match that. Because oh, man, this is going to stick with he or she, and it's going to affect so many people in their lives. So.
Well, your story is crazy, and, it's going to save a lot of people. I believe that I've worked with a lot of doctors over the years and psychiatrists, and I never met one like you before, and I don't think I'll meet another one like you after. And that's because you're just real, man.
Thanks.
And like,
Thanks.
I know that your patients and the people that you work with and our team here, we appreciate that. And your humility and your ability to just be a team player is unmatched. So I love you for that. I think we'll close with just like, to the guy or girl or the young Mikey that's out there 15 years ago, like what do you tell them if they're just starting this journey and they're just trying to make change?
Yeah, I think that's it. I think that there's hope. Like you can. I mean, there was a period of time where I didn't think I could stop drinking or using drugs, 100%. And I was like, this is how it's going to be, you know, but there is hope for recovery, and life is a whole heck of a lot better. It really is.
Yeah.
It really is, because it was, you know, I mean, I think the last, you know, 5 to 7 years, it was just, when they talk about that pure pain, that pure hell, that's what it was.
Yeah.
The pain was just so much.
Yeah.
But I want them to know there's hope. And, you know, the hard thing, though, is they got to ask for help. You know, and that's what I finally did. When I surrendered, that's how I got better.
Incredible. Well,
Love you, brother.
I'm sure
Thanks.
you will be back. First guest, maybe the best guest ever. You know, we can say that.
I don't know.
Look, we're going to appreciate any support we can get on this thing. So like it, subscribe to it, share it. I'm
Like it,
saying all the
subscribe.
things because I actually believe in the shit that we're talking about here.
Yeah.
And the guests that we're having on to kind of carry a message and really talk about behavioral health care and the way that our world can just become a better place. So
Yeah.
that's it. A wrap on episode 1.
Thank you. You got the emotion today, man. You brought it out of me.
I
Love
you,
you, brother. Thanks.
Thank you.